Hello, I'm Andrew Donias. Today I just wanted to show you how to properly read a food label. I know there's certain, people may be afraid of how it looks at first glance, but I want to show actually how it's actually quite simple when you look at it. And even though there's many different components of a food label, it could actually not be as difficult as one might think. This is just a dry roasted peanuts I got, Aldi's near me. It was pretty cheap, not too bad. You kind of see like the amount of ounces of it, how many calories per serving in the front. But what we really want to look at is the back. In the back, we see the amount of servings per container, and it tells us here 28 grams, so about 1/4 of a cup. Now, that one serving size, that may not necessarily be how much you eat. That's just like a general rule of thumb. Like typically it's based around a 2,000 calorie limit that one person may reach during a day. It's just an average number of calories a person may eat. If you don't know what a calorie is, it's basically like an energy unit for food. Humans if you think about it like a battery, humans need a certain amount of calories to eat per day. So this may not necessarily be how much you eat, or 2,000 maybe less or more than you eat, or what you need. It's just a very general guideline. Like, it could be whether you're a man or a woman, it's just 2,000 calories, what is considered like an average. So here we see 160 calories per 28 grams of serving. 28 grams you could weigh usually using a scale, or you could kind of eyeball it with 1/4 of a cup. Usually for grams, if you want accuracy when counting calories or something, you probably want to weigh it out. It's makes it more accurate that during the day, but it's just good to know, because peanuts is actually a good example because they can be pretty high calorie for how much you eat. Like if you actually weigh out like 28 grams, it doesn't look as much. It's not actually that much. So you should definitely be careful of stuff like that. Now here we see the amount of nutrients and like each component. So here the total fats, 12 grams per serving for this. Peanuts has pretty high fat. The carbohydrates and protein are also two components. So if you add up the amount of fat, the amount of carbohydrates, and the amount of protein in something, and you equal like each amount of calorie that weighs, then it's going to equal the same amount of calories. So that's another way you could figure out how many calories you're eating per day. It also tells us the saturated and trans fat. These are important details that I have, because not every fat is made the same. It's not all equal. Some can be bad or healthy. It's like trans fat are actually like, I know, outlawed in states, and I know some companies actually had to implement that this year or next year. So it's important to realize what's the difference. Here we have, for the carbohydrates, it tells us the amount of sugars, the amount of fiber, and the amount of added sugars. This is important to note, because added sugars could usually mean something that's not really natural. Could mean so it's good to know for your diet as well, because not all calories are created equal. Same with protein, that's good to know. Here we also tells us the certain vitamins that it can have. And an important part that everybody should know about what you eat, or the ingredient list. It goes from like the heaviest amount of ingredients in the food to the lowest amount. So it's good to know what actually is in your food when you eat it. I know some people may not really care, but again, just like how not all calories are made the same, not all food is made the same. Some food is very highly processed, has lots of unnecessary ingredients. So now this isn't really organic or anything, or like the best option maybe, but as you can see, it's not like an incredible amount of ingredients. It's just kind of like added flavoring. The only really thing maybe xanthan gum. Xanthan gum is actually a pretty common ingredient in a lot of foods. It's mostly like a thickening agent. It's not really anything as negative as you may think, as like certain stuff you may not be able to pronounce on a lot of ingredient list. Since it's peanuts, it also has an allergy list. A lot of people are allergic to peanuts, so it's good to realize. But yeah, overall, it's like not very complicated. So I hope this helps, and thank you for listening.